Her wink should not have followed me into the boardroom. It should have stayed where it belonged, tangled in last night's music and neon and sweat. Instead, it slipped beneath the glass doors ahead of me and took a seat at the head of the table, wearing a tailored charcoal suit and the kind of composure that turns oxygen thin. When she lifted her eyes from the presentation folder and met mine, something inside me stumbled. Not recognition. Not exactly. Something worse. Anticipation. And when she said my name like she had never whispered it against my skin, I understood that this morning was not going to let me breathe. By the time she finished outlining her vision for the company, my pulse was louder than her applause. Kept my face neutral, professional, practiced. Director of Brand Strategy. Newly promoted. Steady hands. Clean slides. No visible tremors. But she knew. I saw it in the slight curve of her mouth when our gazes collided again. The faintest tilt of her head, a private punctuation mark only I could read. Last night, her fingers had traced the edge of my jaw in the back booth of a bar where we never exchanged last names. This morning, those same fingers rested calmly on a laser pointer as she discussed quarterly projections. When she winked at me mid-sentence, subtle enough that no one else noticed, I realized the cliff I was standing on had no railing. My name is Avery Cole and I have built my life on control. I color-code my calendar. I draft emails twice before sending. I do not let anyone see me unravel. Especially not in a room full of executives who measure worth in numbers and silence. I worked for this promotion for 4 years, swallowed weekends whole, stitched together campaigns from caffeine and stubbornness. Last night was supposed to be a harmless celebration. A spontaneous, reckless punctuation mark after months of restraint. I went out alone, ordered something expensive and sparkling, and let myself flirt with a stranger whose confidence felt like gravity. I did not expect gravity to report to work this morning as my new CEO. Her name, as the board announced with reverence, is Cameron Vale. The syllables landed heavy. Cameron. I repeated it internally, trying to fuse it to the woman from the bar. In dim light she had been warmth and low laughter and hands that knew exactly where to pause. In daylight she was precision. 40. A woman who wore command like it was tailored to her spine. She introduced herself to the room with calm assurance, speaking about innovation and integrity, but when her gaze found me again, it softened for half a breath. Not enough for anyone else to notice. Enough for me to remember the way she had said, "Stay," when I tried to leave her apartment before sunrise. The presentation blurred. Charts rose and fell like tides I could not read. I focused on breathing. In through my nose. Out through my mouth. Do not stare. Do not react. Do not let the memory of her mouth at my collarbone rearrange your posture in a conference chair. When the meeting adjourned, the executives stood in clusters of polite enthusiasm. I gathered my tablet, praying for an exit clean enough to preserve what little composure I had left. That was when her voice, smooth and deliberate, threaded through the room. "Avery, could you stay for a moment?" It was perfectly reasonable. Entirely professional. My name and her tone felt like a pulse pressed to a bruise. We were alone within seconds. The door clicked shut, sealing in the faint scent of her perfume, something dark and subtle that I remembered from the hollow of her throat. She stepped closer, not enough to breach propriety, just enough to tilt the air. "Good morning, Miss Cole," she said, and the corner of her mouth betrayed her. I swallowed. "Good morning, Miss Vale." The formality tasted strange after the way she had said my name last night, soft and almost reverent. For a moment neither of us spoke. The silence was not empty. It vibrated. She glanced toward the glass wall to ensure privacy, then lowered her voice. "We should pretend we've never met." The words were measured. Sensible. Necessary. They also felt like a blade wrapped in silk. I nodded before my pride could object. Of course. I told myself I wanted that. Clean lines. No complications. But her eyes lingered on mine, searching for something beneath the professionalism. "Last night," she began, then paused. I felt the memory flicker between us like a live wire. The way her hands had framed my waist. The way I had laughed against her shoulder, surprised at how easily I had let myself be held. She straightened, reclaiming authority. Was unexpected. My pulse tripped. "Yes," I said carefully. "It was." She studied me as if weighing risk against desire, reputation against impulse. I realized then that control was not mine alone. She was fighting for it too. As I stepped back toward the door, ready to re-enter the world where she was my CO and I was her subordinate, she said my name again. Not Miss Cole. Just Avery. It slipped out before she could stop it. Softer this time. Almost a question. I turned. For a second, the corporate armor fell from her expression, and I saw the woman from the bar, the one who had kissed me like she was claiming something precious. This complicates things, she murmured. I should have agreed. I should have promised distance. Instead, I met her gaze and felt the heat rise between us, bright and dangerous. If this was complication, it was the kind that doesn't untangle quietly. And as I reached for the door handle, I knew pretending would be the hardest lie I've ever told. If pretending was a performance, then day 2 demanded an award. I arrived earlier than usual, armed with coffee and composure, determined to file last night into a locked drawer labeled irresponsible impulse. The office hummed with its usual sterile efficiency, keyboards clicking, phones murmuring, ambition disguised as routine. I told myself that what happened between Cameron and me existed in a sealed pocket of time. Separate. Contained. Then my inbox chimed with a calendar notification. Strategy review 10 a.m. CO office. Required, Avery Cole. The drawer splintered. Her office sat at the end of the executive corridor, all glass and skyline, a throne room built from transparency. When I knocked, her voice carried through the door, steady and warm. Come in. She did not look up immediately when I entered. She finished signing something first, deliberate, controlled. Only then did her gaze lift to meet mine. It was astonishing how a look could feel like touch. Director Cole, she said, a subtle emphasis that felt intentional. Please have a seat. I crossed the room, aware of the precise distance between us, aware of the memory of that distance evaporating in a dark apartment less than 12 hours ago. The meeting began innocently enough. Campaign timelines. Market expansion. She asked sharp questions that demanded sharper answers. I responded in kind, grateful for the familiar rhythm of competence. This was my territory. Data. Strategy. Results. And yet, beneath the professional exchange, something thrummed. Each time I leaned forward to gesture at the tablet between us, her eyes tracked the movement. Each time she praised a proposal, her tone dipped just slightly, like praise meant for more than my work. You're impressive, Avery, she said at one point, voice quieter. The compliment landed differently than it would have from anyone else. It felt personal, intimate, dangerous. I shifted in my seat, reminding myself that admiration from a CEO is currency, not invitation. I take my role seriously, I replied. She smiled faintly. I can see that. Silence stretched. Not awkward. Tarsh. She reached across the table to adjust the tablet screen, and her fingers brushed mine. A simple accident. A fraction of a second. My breath betrayed me anyway. The contact was electric, a spark leaping across professional boundaries we were pretending did not exist. I withdrew first, heat crawling up my neck. If she noticed, she did not comment. But her jaw tightened slightly, as though restraint required effort. About the other night, she said suddenly, pivoting back to the safe language of agendas while slicing straight through them. My pulse stumbled. We agreed, I reminded her gently, that it didn't happen. A flicker of something unreadable crossed her face. Regret? Amusement? Right, she murmured. It didn't. The words hung between us, heavy with everything they denied. She leaned back in her chair, assessing me as though I were both employee and enigma. You're good at compartmentalizing. It wasn't a compliment. It was an observation. I've had practice, I answered, meeting her gaze deliberately. The truth was sharper than I intended. The meeting concluded on paper, but neither of us moved to stand. Outside the glass walls, assistants walked past, unaware that the air inside the office felt several degrees warmer. Cameron rose first, circling the desk to stand beside me rather than across from me. It was a small shift in positioning, but it erased the barrier of furniture. My body reacted before my mind could argue. She stopped just within reach, close enough that I could catch the faint scent of her perfume again. We need boundaries, she said softly. Sensible. Necessary. The proximity made the word boundaries feel almost ironic. I agree, I replied, though my voice carried a tremor I hoped she missed. Her eyes dropped briefly to my mouth, then returned to mine. The movement was subtle but unmistakable. My heartbeat thudded against my ribs like it was asking to be let out. You deserve your promotion, she continued. I won't jeopardize that. The statement should have comforted me. Instead, it stirred something complicated. Was she protecting me or herself? I don't need protection, I said more firmly than intended. A hint of a smile curved her lips. No, she conceded. You don't. For a moment, we stood suspended in a fragile equilibrium. Power balanced between us like a coin spinning on its edge. She was my CEO. She controlled budgets, departments, the future of my career. And yet, in this narrow space between her desk and the window, the power felt mutual. She was not the only one affected. Not the only one remembering how my hands had traced the line of her spine. This can't happen again, she said almost to herself. The word can't sounded less like certainty and more like negotiation. I swallowed, aware that my next words mattered. Then we won't let it, I said. But when I turned to leave, she reached out instinctively, fingers closing lightly around my wrist. Not forceful. Just enough to stop me. The contact was deliberate this time. Intentional. My breath faltered as I looked down at her hand, then back up at her face. Whatever composure she had perfected in the boardroom was thinner now. Avery, she said, my name low and unguarded. Tell me this is easy for you. The question cracked through the professional facade. I could have lied. It would have been safer. Instead, honesty slipped out before I could cage it. It isn't. Her grip loosened, but she did not step back. For one reckless heartbeat, the distance between us dissolved again. And I realized boundaries are easiest to draft on paper, hardest to enforce when the person across from you still feels like fire. By the time the office emptied that night, the building felt less like a workplace and more like a cathedral to fluorescent light and unfinished thoughts. I stayed because there was work to do, because deadlines don't pause for emotional turbulence, because leaving would mean admitting I wanted to escape something. My computer screen glowed pale against the dark windows, reflecting a ghost version of me that looked composed enough to fool strangers. The city outside pulsed with life I wasn't part of. I told myself I preferred it this way. Quiet. Predictable. Safe. Then the elevator chimed down the hall, a bright metallic sound that cut through the silence like a dropped coin. Footsteps followed. Measured. Unhurried. Familiar in a way that made my shoulders tense before my mind caught up. I didn't turn around immediately. I didn't need to. The air changed first, threaded with that subtle dark perfume that had haunted me since the boardroom. You're still here, Cameron said, her voice softer without the scaffolding of daytime authority. I swiveled slowly in my chair, schooling my expression into something neutral. Deadlines, I replied, gesturing vaguely at my screen. They don't respect office hours. She smiled, not the CEO smile meant for shareholders but something quieter. Almost fond. Neither do I, she said. She stepped closer, pausing at the edge of my desk as if waiting for permission to enter a different kind of space. Without the armor of her suit jacket, she looked less like an institution and more like a woman who had simply chosen to stay late. Sleeves rolled, collar open, vulnerability disguised as practicality. My pulse betrayed me again. I could say the same, I admitted. New CEO first week. Not exactly a 9-to-5 situation. Her gaze lingered on my face longer than necessary, studying me like I was something complex she hadn't finished solving. No, she murmured. It isn't. For a while we talked about safe things. Market shifts. Brand positioning. The kind of conversation that builds bridges without acknowledging the river beneath them. It felt easier here in the quiet where no one was watching and no glass walls reflected our proximity back at us. At some point she moved around the desk, not asking, simply choosing the chair beside mine instead of across from it. The closeness was immediate, intimate in a way that had nothing to do with touch. I could hear the subtle cadence of her breathing. See the faint tension in her jaw when she concentrated. You don't have to stay this late, she said gently. Not to prove anything. I laughed under my breath. If I don't prove things, I start disappearing. The words slipped out before I could filter them, raw and unpolished. Cameron's head tilted, her expression sharpening with concern rather than curiosity. You don't strike me as someone who disappears, she said. I shrugged, staring at the city lights. Not physically. Silence settled, heavy but not uncomfortable. She didn't rush to fill it. That restraint felt like a kind of kindness. Finally, she spoke again, quieter. I used to think if I stopped pushing, everything I'd built would collapse. The admission felt personal, unguarded. It shifted the air between us from professional to something dangerously human. I turned to look at her fully. Up close, the confidence she wore in meetings showed tiny fractures. Fatigue at the edges of her eyes. A softness she kept hidden during the day. "Did it?" I asked. She held my gaze, something vulnerable flickering there. "No," she said. But I stopped trusting anyone enough to let them see me try. The honesty hit me like a physical thing. This wasn't flirtation. This was something deeper, riskier. My chest tightened with an emotion I didn't want to name. "That sounds lonely," I said before I could stop myself. Her mouth curved into a faint, bittersweet smile. "It is." The distance between us seemed to shrink without either of us moving. Or maybe awareness simply sharpened. My hand rested on the desk between us, fingers curled loosely, and I became acutely aware of how easy it would be for her to reach across that narrow space. He didn't. Not immediately. Her eyes dropped to my hand, then lifted again, asking a question she wasn't brave enough to voice. My heartbeat stumbled. I should have stood. I should have created distance. Instead, I stayed perfectly still, caught in the gravitational pull of her attention. "Avery," she said quietly, my name less like a label and more like a confession. Her fingers brushed mine, tentative this time, as if testing whether the spark from earlier would ignite again. It did. Heat shot up my arms, stealing the air from my lungs. She didn't pull away, but she didn't tighten her touch either. Just rested there, a fragile point of contact that felt far more intimate than anything reckless. "We're very bad at boundaries," she said, almost apologetically. I exhaled a shaky laugh. "Speak for yourself." But neither of us moved. The city lights shimmered in the window, reflected across the glass like distant stars, and for a moment the office felt suspended outside of time. Her gaze flicked to my mouth, then back to my eyes, uncertainty cracking through her composure. "If I kissed you right now," she said softly, "would you regret it?" The question hovered between us, dangerous and sincere. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure she could hear it. I searched her face for irony, for manipulation, for anything that would make this easier to refuse. There was none. Just a woman who wanted to know if she would hurt me. My voice came out quieter than I intended. "Yes," I said. Her expression faltered, pain flashing across it. Then I added, barely above a whisper, "But not for the reason you think." She inhaled sharply, leaning closer, the space between us dissolving into breath and possibility. And just as her lips hovered a heartbeat away from mine, my phone vibrated violently against the desk, shattering the fragile world we had built in the silence. Rain turned the city into a watercolor that afternoon, blurring glass towers into streaks of gray and silver as the car crawled through traffic. Of all the indignities the universe could arrange, being trapped in the back seat with Cameron Vale ranked near the top. A routine trip to meet a potential client across town had been reduced to a slow, claustrophobic crawl through flooded streets. Our driver murmured apologies into the rearview mirror, but neither of us was listening. The space between Cameron and me felt smaller than the car's dimensions allowed, thick with everything we hadn't said since my phone had detonated that almost kissed the night before. She had been impeccable all morning. Polished. Unreadable. The CEO mask restored with surgical precision. If not for the memory of her breath warming my lips in the dim office light, I might have believed nothing had happened. But occasionally, when she thought I wasn't looking, her gaze drifted toward me and softened for a fraction of a second before snapping back to neutral. Now, with rain hammering the roof and nowhere to escape, neutrality felt impossible. "You didn't answer your phone," she said finally, her voice calm but threaded with something else. I stared out at the streaked window. I didn't want to. The honesty surprised both of us. Silence settled again, heavy but alive. The car lurched forward a few meters, then stopped. Cameron shifted beside me, the subtle movement drawing my attention despite my resolve. Without her jacket, the clean lines of her blouse followed the shape of her shoulders, her throat exposed where the collar dipped open. I hated that I noticed. Hated more that she noticed me noticing. "We should talk about last night," she said quietly. "Not the bar. Not the boardroom. The office. The almost." My pulse kicked. "There's nothing to talk about," I replied too quickly. A faint crease formed between her brows. "Avery." My name sounded less like authority and more like concern. The driver cleared his throat apologetically. Roads completely flooded ahead, ma'am. We'll have to stop here. Cameron nodded, professional even in inconvenience. Thank you. We stepped out into the rain together, umbrellas opening in near unison, though the wind immediately rendered them decorative at best. The pavement glistened darkly, reflecting fractured neon from storefront signs. For a moment we stood awkwardly close, forced by the narrow strip of awning overhead. Water drummed around us like applause for a scene neither of us knew how to perform. Her hand closed around my elbow to steady me as a gust of wind shoved sideways. The contact was practical, protective. It still sent a jolt through me sharp enough to steal breath. Careful, she murmured, her voice low to be heard over the rain. I nodded, but neither of us stepped away. The umbrella tilted, bringing us even closer, shoulders brushing, the faint warmth of her body cutting through the damp chill. Up close, the scent of her perfume mixed with rain and something unmistakably human. My brain insisted this was inappropriate. My body did not care. We can't keep pretending nothing is happening, she said, barely audible above the storm. Water clung to her lashes, making her look unexpectedly vulnerable, like the woman from the bar rather than the one from the boardroom. I searched for a safe response and found none. What do you want me to say? I asked. Her gaze held mine, steady and searching. Say you don't feel it. The challenge hung there, impossible. As I did feel it. In the way my pulse synced to her proximity. In the way the world narrowed until there was only rain in her eyes and the unbearable awareness of her mouth. My silence answered for me. Something shifted in her expression, a decision forming behind her composure. She lifted her free hand, hesitated for half a breath, then brushed a strand of rain-damp hair away from my cheek. The gesture was gentle, almost reverent, and devastatingly intimate. My breath caught, chest tightening with the sudden, irrational urge to lean into her touch. Avery, she said again, softer now, as if my name itself was fragile. The umbrella dipped lower, isolating us from the world into a small, dim circle of shared air and pounding rain. When she kissed me, it wasn't rushed or reckless. It was careful, deliberate, as if she were asking permission even as she crossed the line. Her lips were warm despite the cold rain, steady against mine, not demanding, just present. For a heartbeat I froze, shock and inevitability colliding. Then something inside me gave way, a knot loosening that I hadn't known I was holding. I kissed her back just as carefully, just as deliberately, the world outside dissolving into white noise and water. It wasn't like the urgency of last night. It was quieter, deeper, dangerous in a way that had nothing to do with exposure and everything to do with how right it felt. A car splashed through a puddle nearby, jolting us apart before the moment could deepen into something irreversible. We stepped back, breathless, rain suddenly too cold against overheated skin. Her eyes searched mine, wide and unguarded, as if she had just done something she couldn't undo. That was a mistake, she said hoarsely, though her expression argued otherwise. I opened my mouth to respond, but movement in the periphery caught my eye. A figure stood under the neighboring awning, phone lowered slowly from chest height, gaze fixed on us with unmistakable recognition. Someone from the office. Someone who had just watched everything. And in that instant, I knew the storm around us was nothing compared to the one that was about to break. Rumors don't enter an office. They seep in, quiet as damp through drywall, until everything smells faintly of rot and no one can remember when the leak started. By Monday morning, conversations stopped a fraction too late when I approached. Screens minimized. Eyes slid away with guilty efficiency. No one said my name outright, but I heard the echoes of it in hushed tones near the coffee machine, in the elevator, in the bathroom stall where two junior analysts whispered as if confidentiality could be manufactured from thin air. I told myself it might be unrelated. Offices breed speculation the way storms breed thunder. But when my calendar pinged with an unscheduled meeting request from Human Resources, denial packed its bags. The HR conference room felt aggressively neutral, as if beige could absorb scandal. The woman across from me spoke with the careful cadence of someone navigating a legal minefield. We've received concerns regarding professional boundaries, she said, folding her hands with surgical precision. Concerns. Not accusations. Not yet. My throat tightened anyway. I don't know what you're referring to, I replied, aiming for calm and landing somewhere near brittle. She nodded sympathetically, which was worse than skepticism. Of course. This is simply a reminder of company policy regarding relationships between executives and direct reports. The words landed like stones dropped into deep water. Heavy. Final. By the time I left that room, my hands were trembling so badly I had to press them flat against my sides to hide it. The hallway stretched long and bright, every step echoing like an announcement. Director Cole. Rising star. Liability. I didn't look toward the executive corridor. I didn't want to see her door. I didn't want to know if she was inside pretending to work while the same rumors circled her like vultures. Because if she was calm, if she was untouched, it would mean this mattered more to me than it did to her. That possibility lodged in my chest like shrapnel. He found me anyway. Late afternoon, just as I was packing my bag with mechanical precision, determined to leave before anyone could corner me with sympathetic looks. Avery, Cameron said from the doorway of my office, her voice low enough not to carry. I froze with my laptop half inside its case. Seeing her there, framed by fluorescent light and tension, felt like reopening a wound that had barely started to clot. We need to talk. The words sounded formal, rehearsed, stripped of the warmth she had shown me in the rain. I nodded once because refusing would have required more strength than I had left. Her office felt colder than usual, the vast windows turning the late sky into a hard sheet of steel. She didn't sit behind her desk this time. She stood near the window, arms crossed, posture rigid enough to signal distance from across the room. HR spoke to you, she said, not a question. I nodded. They did. A muscle flickered in her jaw. They spoke to me as well. Of course they had. The realization twisted something inside me, equal parts dread and hope. If she had been called in, it meant this wasn't one-sided damage. We were both standing in the blast radius. We can't continue this, she said, each word precise, controlled, devastating. Not shouldn't. Not mustn't. Can't. My pulse faltered. Continue what? I asked, though the answer was obvious. Her eyes closed briefly, as if summoning composure from somewhere deep and nearly empty. Whatever this is between us. The room felt suddenly too small, the air too thin. So that's it. I said, the calm in my voice brittle enough to shatter. One warning and you walk away? Her eyes snapped open, pain flashing through them before discipline smothered it. I'm protecting you, she said. The words hit harder than any accusation could have. Protecting me implied fragility, implied that I was a problem to be managed. Anger surged, sharp and hot enough to burn through the numbness. I didn't ask for protection, I shot back. I asked for honesty. The silence that followed was volcanic, pressure building beneath a surface that looked deceptively still. She took a step toward me, then stopped as if remembering the invisible line she had just drawn. Honesty is what's putting your career at risk, she said quietly. If this becomes official, you lose credibility. Opportunities. Everything you've worked for. The concern in her voice was real. So was the distance. Something inside me cracked. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a quiet internal fracture that changed the shape of everything. And what about you? I asked, my voice softer now, stripped of anger and heavy with something closer to hurt. Do you lose anything? Her expression faltered, genuine emotion breaking through at last. Yes, she said hoarsely. I lose you. The confession landed too late, arriving after the verdict had already been delivered. It should have mattered. It should have softened the blow. Instead, it only made the rejection sharper because it proved she felt this too and still chose to let it go. I looked at her then, really looked, memorizing the lines of her face, the tension in her shoulders, the vulnerability she couldn't quite hide. This woman had held me in the rain like something precious. Now she was letting me fall to keep her world intact. Maybe she believed it was noble. Maybe it was. It still hurt. I'll request a transfer, I said quietly. The words surprised me with their steadiness. Her head jerked up, shock cutting through her composure. Avery, you don't have to, I shook my head, stopping her. If we're ending this, I can't sit in meetings pretending you're just another executive. I'm not that good at compartmentalizing. For a moment she looked like she might argue, might fight, might admit that distance was the last thing she actually wanted. Instead, she nodded once, a small, defeated motion that felt heavier than any speech. If that's what you need. Not what she needed. What I needed. As if she were granting permission rather than losing something irreplaceable. I turned toward the door before the moisture gathering in my eyes could betray me. My hand hovered on the handle, waiting for her to say something. Anything. My name. An apology. A command to stay. Silence pressed in from all sides. And when I finally opened the door, I realized that sometimes the loudest sound in the world is the absence of someone fighting for you. Packing up your life into cardboard is an oddly quiet kind of violence. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just the soft rasp of tape and the hollow thud of objects losing their place. By noon, my office looked like it belonged to someone who had already stopped existing. The framed certificate leaned against the wall, faceless without context. The plant I had kept alive for 3 years sat on the windowsill like it was waiting for instructions I could no longer give. My transfer request had been approved with unsettling efficiency. Different department. Different floor. Clean break. Corporate anesthesia. I told myself this was what I wanted. Distance. Safety. Oxygen that didn't taste like her perfume. I was sealing the final box when a shadow fell across the doorway. I didn't look up immediately. Some stubborn part of me refused to hope. "You're leaving today," Cameron said, her voice stripped of its usual polish, rough around the edges like it had been used too much without rest. I froze with the tape halfway torn. Of course she would know. CEOs know everything that moves inside their buildings. Slowly I lifted my gaze. She looked different. Not disheveled exactly, but undone in subtle ways. Jacket missing. Hair less precise. Authority softened by something dangerously close to desperation. "It seemed easier," I said, aiming for neutral and landing somewhere near numb. She stepped inside, closing the door behind her with deliberate care, as if privacy itself were fragile. Easier for who? The question wasn't accusatory. It was wounded. I swallowed, throat tight. For everyone. Her mouth tightened, frustration flickering through the composure she was clearly struggling to maintain. Not for me. The admission hung in the air, raw and unvarnished, stripping away the last of the professional barrier between us. She crossed the room slowly, stopping a few feet away from the half-packed boxes like they were evidence at a crime scene. "You don't have to do this," she said quietly. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so painfully late. "You said we couldn't continue," I reminded her. "This is what not continuing looks like." Her eyes closed briefly as if the words physically hurt. When she opened them again, something had shifted. Not softer. Clearer. "I was wrong," she said. The simplicity of it stunned me. Cameron Vale, the woman who built a career on certainty, admitting error like it cost her blood. My heart lurched despite my best efforts to keep it locked down. "You weren't wrong," I said, forcing steadiness into my voice. "You were practical." The word tasted like dust. She shook her head. "I was afraid." The confession cracked through the room like thunder. Afraid of losing control. Afraid of damaging the company. Afraid of repeating past mistakes. She stepped closer, her gaze locked on mine with a vulnerability so naked it felt almost intrusive to witness. "But mostly I was afraid of how much I want you." My pulse went feral, slamming against my ribs like it was trying to escape my body entirely. "Cameron," I started, but the name dissolved into air. She closed the remaining distance between us, not touching, just standing close enough that the warmth of her presence pressed against my skin. "You asked what I would lose," she continued, voice low and unsteady. "The truth is, I've been losing it since the moment I watched you walk out of my office." Her eyes searched mine, not for permission this time, but for honesty. "I don't want control," she said, the words trembling with something deeper than fear. "I want you." Every defense I had constructed over the past 48 hours crumbled like paper in rain. Bigger. Pride. Self-preservation. All of it felt small compared to the raw sincerity in her voice. "You can't just say that and expect everything to be okay," I whispered, though my resolve was already dissolving. She nodded, accepting the rebuke without flinching. "I know." Her hand lifted, hesitating inches from my face, giving me time to pull away if I needed to. I didn't. Her fingertips brushed my cheek, gentle enough to feel like a question. "I don't expect forgiveness," she said softly. "I just couldn't let you leave without telling you the truth." The touch unraveled me. Not because it was passionate, but because it wasn't. It was careful, reverent, as if she understood exactly how fragile I felt. My eyes stung, vision blurring with emotion I had spent years training myself not to show. "I was trying to protect myself," I admitted, voice cracking despite my efforts. Because if I stayed and you decided again that I wasn't worth the risk. I couldn't finish. The possibility alone felt like stepping off a cliff. Her expression broke open completely then, pain and tenderness spilling through unchecked. You were never the risk, she said. Losing you was. Her thumb brushed just beneath my eye, catching the tear before it could fall, the gesture so intimate it made my breath hitch. We stood there in the wreckage of my carefully ordered life, surrounded by boxes and unsaid things finally finding air. What happens now? I asked, the question small but enormous at the same time. She exhaled slowly as if steadying herself for something irreversible. Now, she said, voice quiet but resolute, I stop hiding. The words settled into my chest like a spark landing in dry tinder. And for the first time since the rumors began, hope felt less like a liability and more like something dangerous enough to change everything. The boardroom looked exactly the same as it had the morning everything fell apart, which felt unfair. The same polished table, the same orderly rows of chairs, the same skyline glittering beyond the glass like nothing human could ever touch it. I sat halfway down the table with my hands folded tightly in my lap, aware of every executive present, every curious glance, every whisper that died when the door opened. Cameron entered last, composed as ever, but there was something different in the way she carried herself. Not heavier. Lighter, almost like she had set something down that had been crushing her for a long time. She didn't begin with numbers or projections. No performance metrics, no strategic forecasts. Instead, she rested her hands on the back of her chair and looked around the room with calm, deliberate focus. Before we proceed, she said, her voice steady but stripped of corporate gloss, there is a matter of personal conduct I need to address. My pulse spiked so violently I wondered if it was visible through my blouse. This was it. The detonation. Careers don't implode with explosions. They unravel in sentences spoken in professional tones. I braced myself for distance, for denial, for the kind of carefully worded statement that erases one person to protect another. Instead, she continued, I have entered into a personal relationship with an employee. No qualifiers. No evasions. Just truth laid bare on polished wood. A ripple moved through the room, subtle but unmistakable. Someone shifted in their chair. Someone else cleared their throat. I stared at the grain of the table because looking at her felt too dangerous. To eliminate any conflict of interest, she went on, I will be restructuring reporting lines effective immediately. Director Cole will no longer fall under my direct oversight. My head snapped up despite myself. She met my gaze then, not lingering long enough to be inappropriate, but long enough to anchor me in what was happening. She wasn't discarding me. She was moving mountains to keep me. The meeting continued after that, surreal in its normalcy. Budgets. Timelines. Questions about expansion. My mind caught fragments but couldn't assemble them into meaning. All I could hear was the echo of her words. Personal relationship. Not fling. Not mistake. Relationship. Something intentional. Something chosen. When it finally adjourned, chairs scraped back and conversations resumed with forced professionalism, like everyone had agreed to pretend they hadn't just witnessed something deeply human in a room designed to sterilize humanity. I gathered my things slowly, unsure whether to leave quickly or wait. Cameron remained at the head of the table, speaking quietly with one of the board members. Her posture relaxed in a way I had never seen before. When the room emptied at last, she looked up and found me still there. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. The silence thick with everything that had changed and everything that hadn't. You didn't have to stay, she said softly. I shrugged, suddenly self-conscious. I wasn't sure if I should go. She walked toward me, each step measured but unhesitating, stopping just within arm's reach. Up close, I could see the faint tension she hadn't completely erased, the vulnerability beneath her composure. I meant what I said, she told me, voice low enough that it felt private even in an empty room. I'm not hiding you. The words settled deep, filling a hollow space I hadn't realized was still aching. You didn't have to risk so much, I said. Her mouth curved into a small, genuine smile. I didn't risk anything I wasn't already losing. My breath caught as the weight of that settled between us. This wasn't reckless anymore. It wasn't secret or stolen. It was deliberate. Chosen in daylight. She reached for my hand slowly, giving me time to pull away, to second-guess, to retreat into safety. I didn't. Her fingers closed around mine, warm and steady, Not possessive, just certain. The contact felt different from every other touch we had shared. Not urgent. Not fragile. Solid, like something meant to last. Are you sure? I asked quietly, searching her face for hesitation. There was none. Only a calm resolve that felt stronger than any declaration. I've spent years building a life that looked perfect from the outside, she said, her thumb brushing lightly across my knuckles. None of it felt like this. My chest tightened, emotion rising so quickly it made my eyes sting. Like what? I whispered. She stepped closer, her free hand lifting to rest gently at my waist. The gesture intimate but unhurried. Like something worth being brave for. The simplicity of it unraveled the last of my defenses. I leaned into her without thinking, forehead resting briefly against her shoulder, letting myself be held in the open without fear of being seen. When I pulled back, the city beyond the glass was blazing with late afternoon light, everything sharp and golden and impossibly clear. She tilted her head, studying me with a softness that no longer felt dangerous, just honest. Last night was an accident, she said quietly. I remembered the bar, the music, the reckless freedom of not knowing her name. This, she continued, squeezing my hand gently, is a choice. Warmth spread through my chest, steady and bright, chasing away the lingering shadows of doubt. For the first time since that morning in the boardroom, my heartbeat felt like it belonged to me again. We stood there for a long moment, hands intertwined on the polished surface of the table that had witnessed our worst fear and our bravest truth. No secrecy. No urgency. Just the quiet certainty of two people who had stopped running. Outside, the city roared on, indifferent and immense. But inside that glass-walled room, the world had narrowed to something infinitely smaller and infinitely more important. I had walked into this building terrified of losing everything. Instead, I had found something I hadn't known how to want until it was already mine. And as Cameron's fingers tightened around mine, warm and unwavering, I realized some risks don't ruin you. Some of them finally let you breathe.